everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious chocolate mint candies cookies, and these are so perfect for the holidays. They're very chocolatey, very minty, and yeah, I think they're perfect for Christmas cookies or any kind of holiday event. So I really hope you enjoyed this recipe, and make sure to download the whole recipe from my website mischievous.tv. I'll have it there. So I hope you enjoy this video and try it out for yourself. So these are all the ingredients you're going to need. You're going to need some chocolate. This is cooking chocolate. So some like bittersweet cooking chocolate. You're going to need some thin mints. These are after eights. Some raw sugar. You can use brown sugar. Flour, just all regular all-purpose flour. Butter. Some baking soda. 2 eggs and some salt. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got out my metric scale, and I'm going to measure out 170 grams of just regular unsalted butter, and I'm going to have all the metric and the US conversion to that, the full recipe, on my website. So if you're not used to measuring in metric, which I totally prefer, it's so much easier, then you can just go on my website and you'll find all the US measurements for that. So I am going to slowly melt the butter in a saucepan over medium heat, and meanwhile I'm going to just measure out the sugar for this. So you need 220 grams of brown sugar. I'm just going to use raw sugar for this, so pretty much the same. Now the only thing is, I made this recipe last time and it was just really sweet, so I'm actually going to halve it, and I am only going to actually use half of that. So I'm only going to measure out 110 grams. So there is my sugar. You can definitely use brown sugar for this. And maybe you want to stir that occasionally just with like a whisk. Oh, the last video that I made, some people asked me about this whisk. These are awesome whisks. I actually have 2 of these. I use these all the time for sauces and stuff, and you can get these at IKEA. Okay, so once the butter has melted, it should look like this. It shouldn't get brown or anything, just melted. And now I'm going to add the sugar to that. And you also want to add about 40 milliliters of water. Oh, sorry, not 40, 30 milliliters of water. Then, as you'll see, it starts to combine. So you don't want any separation. It should look something like this, kind of like this kind of brown texture. So here I have got my semi-sweet chocolate ready. You may want to make sure that you do use semi-sweet, otherwise it is going to be really sugary. This is just cooking chocolate or baking chocolate, but you can also use like chocolate chips. Those are really easy to find everywhere. Okay, so once your mixture here is kind of hot, it doesn't have to be boiling, but just it has to have a nice good temperature. You're going to just add in the chocolate. And you don't have to boil this or anything. The chocolate is going to start melting right away. Just gonna cover those, and they're getting soft right away. So you can just keep stirring this a little bit until the chocolate has dissolved and it's going to mix with the buttery stuff that you made here. So yeah, this is definitely not a recipe that's like low on calories, but I mean, for Christmas, it's okay to have stuff like this, I think. So once that has all dissolved, you can see it should be a very kind of creamy texture. And you don't have to boil it. In fact, you shouldn't boil it, because what happens when you boil, sometimes the chocolate can separate. And you want to let this cool for about 10 minutes or so. So while that chocolate mixture is cooling, I'm going to just start measuring out my other ingredients. So the first thing you're going to need is all-purpose flour. And you need about 310 grams for this. And you also want to add your baking soda to the dry ingredients, and it's about 6 grams. I think it's like about 1.5 teaspoons or so. And you also want to add a little bit of salt. And I just put the salt right on here. So there's 3 grams of salt. And then you just want to whisk those ingredients together just so that the baking soda and the salt and everything combines with the flour. Okay, so now the chocolate mixture has cooled somewhat, and the reason you want to cool it is because when you put in the eggs, you don't want the eggs to cook, obviously, otherwise you're going to get some weird omelet kind of thing. So this is not actually in the recipe, but I'm going to do this. This is just a little bit of brandy, just some cheap brandy. Obviously, if you don't like alcoholic stuff, then you can leave this part out. And I'm just going to add a little bit of brandy to that and mix that in. So then you're going to take your chocolate mixture and put it into a large bowl. And I'm just going to use a spatula to get all that stuff out. Then to the mixture you want to add 2 eggs. Oops! Okay, that's not supposed to happen. But, nah. Oh well. 2 eggs. And then you just want to mix that in. I'm going to use a hand mixer for this. If you don't have something like this, use a regular whisk. Just want to make sure it's nice and creamy. And then you want to add bit by bit the flour mixture. So it should look like this now. You want to chill this for about an hour until the dough gets hard. Well, it's not going to get hard, but it just is going to be a little bit firmer, and then you can form your cookies out of that. So once your dough is ready, after an hour of chilling, it's like this. It's kind of hard, as you can tell. And you want to preheat the oven at this stage. So you want to preheat it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius. So now I'm going to take just a spoon and get a little bit of the cookie dough, and just want to make sure you have really clean and kind of cold hands, and you want to form balls. Form those balls. Anyway, so you want to put them like so. This is just regular parchment paper that's on the cookie sheet, this stuff, so that it doesn't stick, so that you don't have to use more butter and stuff like that, because these are already quite buttery. Woo. So you just want to make sure that you space them far enough apart so that they don't melt together when they're baking. So now my oven has preheated, so I'm going to put them into the oven to bake for about 8 to 10 minutes. Make sure that you don't over bake them, because otherwise they're going to get crispy. Unless you really like the crispy, I like sort of more the soft cookies. So now the cookies are coming out of the oven, and now you gotta work a little bit quickly. So you gotta take your mince and you're just gonna kind of press them down on the cookies. And the heat of the cookie is gonna melt them a little bit. So I'm using After Eights for this, but you can use other kinds of chocolate mints if you have another brand that you like more. Once the chocolate starts to kind of melt, you're gonna take a spoon and just kind of smother that cookie, or sort of smother the chocolate over the cookie, and it's going to start covering the cookies like that. And then that is the finished cookie. So then after about a minute or so, once it's cooled down a little bit, you want to transfer them onto cooling racks so that they can fully harden. And the cookie, so delicious. Minty, chocolatey goodness. So I really hope you enjoyed this and try it out.